Good morning. I'm Frank Kaufmann. I'm doing a piece this morning entitled "The Class Obstacle." I'll be looking at class, upper and lower classes, different stratification of what's called class difference, and looking at obstacles that stand in the way of people of different classes being able to work together harmoniously and constructively toward the creation of a healthy society with happy citizens in it. The issue of class is, I have a lot of views on it. Extreme differences in class disturb people, and a lot of the political activism, and a lot of the extremist political activism. In fact, Marxism, a militant ideology which built states with nuclear power to pursue and seek to expand the ideology is purely based on class. We talked about alienation, which is class-based. So class is an enormous problem, and of course needs to be resolved. The difference between classes is met with different approaches. One of the ways is what I believe to be almost perfectly errant is to imagine to create a society with no class difference. I just can't imagine that ever being the case. No class difference. So that pursuit, I think, is just bound to be both a waste of time and to cause lots of serious problems. I think I think the most important problem related to class is that societies allow the existence of citizens within extreme poverty, lacking the basic necessity for the sustenance of life, the maintenance of family, and the importance of human dignity. Any society that in which extreme poverty persists and that is not a concern, that society is a kind of form of evil, an evil form of human organization. So my concern about class, uh, people usually they're usually looking at extremes. They're not looking at classes that are close together. I can walk one block from where I live and find people poorer than me and people richer than me, and between the three neighborhoods I would walk through, the rich one, my own, and the poor one, um, there's not going to be a lot of there's not going to be a lot of difference in the capacity for any of us to live our lives well. So class difference in and of itself really it's just not a problem in and of itself. Uh, I could have members of my own family who are far richer than me or poorer than me, and we're all fine. We're perfectly fine. I can have a brother way richer than me. That's all right. It doesn't have any real impact on my capacity to raise my children well, to have them well educated, to give them good opportunities in a free and open society. So I really believe that any reaction to class that is trying to create a society with no class difference is just plain misguided, just simply plain misguided. And so the notion, perceiving of human equality as a society without class, also I think is misguided. I can't see ever, even in a perfect world, not only the utter absence of class, that everybody is an identical same economic class, not only, but even that would even be that would even be a enjoyable kind of society in which to live. The problem is extreme the extreme. Well, some people think it's the extremes. So if you have extreme poverty in a society, there you have a real problem. You have people who can't. They don't have what's needed to live to live in a healthy way, to raise their children with the opportunity, the educational opportunity, and the basic elements of health that they'll need to prosper in their lives. Any society that allows people in extreme poverty and not trying to do anything about it, there you have a real problem. Um, but in my own particular case, and a lot of people, by looking at extreme poverty, they also have a great hostility to extreme wealth. They kind of blame extreme poverty on extreme wealth. I myself don't have any particular difficulty with extreme wealth. I don't care. I really do not care how rich anybody. There's no limit. In my mind, there's no limit to how rich a person can be that it would bother me. Uh, Personally, I think it's dumb. I think extreme wealth is such a prison of life that I pity people with extreme wealth. Uh, it's it's just unpleasant. I don't know why anybody would want to live like that myself, but that's its own affair. It's just complicated. It's just in the way of simple joys. But that's me. The only thing that troubles me in the world of class difference is extreme poverty. That's what really needs to be attended to, because every single human being is a creature of God by whatever way, however you understand that spiritually or even conscientiously, a creature of God, and they deserve the minimum, at least the minimum, of what's needed to have pride and dignity in front of your family, in front of your friends, to provide opportunity for your children, and so forth. That's the concern, that poverty does not drop below the level of opportunity, dignity, health, those things. But on the opposite end, wealth, have it if you really want it, or take good care of it if you're born with it, and if you're stuck with it, try to learn how to live right with it. Good luck. That's I have no troubles there. So, but class difference has massive impact on political, social, and cultural reality. And in fact, it's very central in tearing the United States up unnecessarily, really unnecessarily, in my opinion. So I was reading this friend of mine, teacher of mine, from whom I always, not, from whom I get a lot of inspiration. And again, I've often said it's the man's angle. It's just this kind of casual throwaway observations that are so right on and contribute so well to recommended paths for a better life and a better society. So he writes, on a hierarchy level, or jealousy normally comes from the bottom up. It does not come from the top down. Up to down, you have contempt. In quotes. That's contemptuous. I am disgusted with that person's actions. It won't come out of jealousy or envy. Jealousy and envy are due to things that you can see and feel, tactile things you need to feel and you need to have. This application will trigger jealousy. If something is just out there in theory, how can you be jealous of something you can't measure? Jealousy and envy exist because it's measurable. Now, the thing I liked about this as I read it was what I perceived to be identifying, even accidentally. I don't think accidentally, I just think the guy hits it all the time. But identifying a core dynamic in the class conversation, which is what keeps this problem from being solved better. So I've already established on the front end of my comments that I do not believe that we need to be trying to make one class. I think it's a silly pursuit simply. And me personally, I do not believe we need to make any effort to constrain anybody from being as rich as they want to burden themselves with. Go ahead, have at it. That's not a problem, other people's wealth. Why it's perceived to be a problem is people that operate under a notion of zero sum. They imagine that if those people didn't have that wealth, it would somehow be in the hands of the poor and everything would be all right. So then you develop resentment based, confiscatory based responses to class difference. I propose, or I believe, that with class difference, all you need to do is develop a mutual respect and admiration, a genuine appreciation for one another's ways of being in the world, insights, and so on and so forth, and learn how to work together in a constructive way that by which everybody benefits. That's all. I don't. I don't want to. I don't want to be exactly as rich as anybody else. I have in my class, I have a lot of benefits and a lot of insights which come from living exactly in the class I do, and that people poorer than me don't, and people richer than me also do not. So all that's needed is a constructive conversation among the classes, not a confiscatory, kind of militantly opposed, uh, forced egalitarianization of these classes. That's not the solution. What is the solution is conversational reality, is a constructive, mutually beneficial conversational posture among people of different classes, not a forced, confiscatory, militant, a kind of enforced removal of some people's wealth and enforced kind of distribution to other people. The only thing that has to be tended to or cared for is to obstruct criminality, which you do anyway, all the time anyway, and to obstruct any type of social reality in which people are deprived or at a poverty level that is beneath minimum needs and dignity. All right. So now we are faced with the reality of class difference, and we're faced with the problems class differences cause. And so as we try to solve those very genuine problems caused by class difference, the aggrieved parties, any two parties that are at odds, the way that solutions arise out of any two parties, whether it's a husband and wife, whether it's blacks and whites, whether it's Chinese and Japanese, whether it's argument over some part of the ocean or whatever, any time that there's problems that exist between two parties, what's necessary is the kind of conversation that's needed until mutual understanding arises. And then once there's mutual understanding, then you can begin to creatively develop ways to transcend what you learn about the difficulties of the other, or what you learn about the unfair and unnecessary excesses of the other, and so forth. Work together. Conversation is needed, dialogue is needed, and from that, mutual understanding can grow, and from that, constructive proposals can be introduced and be implemented. So what my buddy does here is point out that there are opposite problems infecting the opposite classes. So the problem infecting the upper classes is when such people allow themselves to be degenerate in the position in which they're capable of looking on other people's situations with contempt. That is a vile and disgusting way to be a human being, to look at other people with contempt while knowing nothing about them, nothing about their situation, nothing about their struggles, nothing about their difficulties. There's never a case that one needs to look at others with contempt. The only way one needs to look at others is with compassion and with a desire to be supportive of helping them improve their lives. From the bottom up, as what I just read, my friend says, from the bottom up is jealousy. From the bottom up, you look at things that you can measure. That person's house is bigger than mine. Their steak is tastier than mine. Their vegetables are fresher than mine. Their car is faster than mine. Their lives look better than mine, seem to be better than mine. And then with a mind that starts to measure differences what arises out of that is jealousy. So you have two different types of people that need to be in conversation with one another. But the problem is that what needs to be discussed are not shared. So if you have Israelis and Palestinians and you have a particular dam blocking the water of getting to one section of the population or another, they're discussing the same thing. They're discussing that river and that dam. They're discussing water. They're discussing a thing that they can both look to and both address. If you have if you have military concerns about activity in the South China Sea, similarly, you're looking at a particular piece of geography, and if you have any hope of getting at a conversation in which dialogue will yield to mutual understanding, shared concerns, and capacity to work together, you're looking at the same thing. But with class, what I'm introducing here from my reading of my friend this morning is that you get two people talking together and they're not looking at the same thing. The upper class is plagued with the disease of contempt. The lower class is plagued with the disease of jealousy. The different groups have different concerns. It's not like the same dam. It's not like the same sea. It's so the conversations don't happen. The dialogue doesn't happen. They're not listening to each other because, and that's what I call the class obstacle. The obstacle is that the conversation doesn't start because each group has a different concern, a different matter, a different orientation. They're looking at a different thing, and they are contaminated and diminished by different realities. You're diminished by jealousy rather than gratitude, and you're diminished by contempt rather than compassion. And so this simple piece of observation of my friend here that says from the top down you have contempt, from the bottom up you have jealousy, introduces the very first step that's necessary before the classes can start to work cooperatively with one another. They at least need to be talking about the same thing. And I believe that these couple of paragraphs introduce a doorway to allow us to be able to talk about the same thing. I think it's a fantastic starting point to start to take up the issues that are very important, not only in America, but everywhere in the world, because everywhere in the world there's class difference. There's extreme wealth, there's extreme poverty. I personally believe only the extreme poverty is a moral problem. I don't believe extreme wealth is a moral problem. It's just a choice, or it's just an inheritance or something like that. It's just, to me, it's just a burden. But I'm not going to hold anything against somebody who's stuck with that situation. But class difference, where it's problematic, needs a dialogue and conversation, just like any two things that are problematic. Parents and children, husband and wife, any people, any two groups that are problematic need conversation. And here my friend has pointed out that conversation proceeds along different tracks. It's like two railroad tracks. They go past each other every time, every time, every time. And the future of creating a harmonious and constructive and shared prosperity culture and society requires that people of different class realities be able to talk to each other. And this observation is an extremely important matter to contribute to the potential of that conversation. Thanks very much for listening. Happy to be with you and look forward to our next time together. Thank you.